Chapter 15, Part 2. But Frolic seemed unable to drive. He stalled the cycle and couldn't start it up again. He was shivering, his great horns wilting in the rain. Frolic, says Bixer, by all the 12 Astræas, drive. We'll get pulled up if you don't. I'm trying, muttered Frolic, as he failed again to restart the cycle. Bixer's needles blanched to palest white. And then without warning, a shadow guard was in front of them, blotting out the world around them. Stop right there, he ordered in a voice that Lucky felt in his bones. And in his mind he was right back in Phoenix Spaceport on the flight tower, with the shadow ship bearing down on him and his mother. But she wasn't there to save him this time. All he had was a flimsy disguise. Show your ident, commanded the shadow guard as Frolix pulled the cycle to the side of the road. Got it right here, stammered Frolix, handing his card over. He was far bigger than the shadow guard, but his size counted for nothing before such power. The shadow guard scanned the ident. What are you doing? It's an anti-government march. Mumbled Frolix. We're on the crew of a civilian ship, loyal to the government, said Bixer, interrupting imperiously. We're on shore leave. We had no idea there was a protest march here today. We were just going shopping in the famous market, but we got caught up in this stupid crowd. We'd be very grateful if you'd help us get out of it. The shadow guard looked at Lucky. You at the back. You were shaking. Why? Lucky couldn't answer. He could barely even breathe. He looked into the faceless darkness before him. He could see no eyes, no mouth, nothing human at all. Take off those glasses, ordered the shadow guard. Lucky forced himself to remove the mirror shades. His contact lenses were exposed. Surely the shadow guard would see straight through them. Now hold still, said the shadow guard. I am going to scan your brain. Oh no, please no. The shadow guard held a hand up to Lucky's face. The fingers of darkness reached for his eyes. But Bixer just laughed as if he didn't have a care in the world. Of course he's shaking, they both are. They know I'm going to kick their asses for this mix-up when we get back to our ship. And so's our captain. I told them not to come this way, but they insisted, didn't you, boys? Yeah, whimpered Frolix. Lucky tried to do the same, but his mouth was so dry he couldn't speak. See, that one's not even worth talking to, Bixer snorted. Look at those teeny tiny horns. He's one sorry excuse for an actor. No, if there's anything you want to know, you can brain scan me if you like. Here. She took off her mirror shades and looked directly at the shadow guard with her silver eyes. I don't mind. The shadow guard stared at her. She held his gaze 1 second, 2, 3, until Lucky thought his heart was going to explode. And then at last the shadow guard nodded and let his hand fall back to his side. That won't be necessary, he said, returning Frolix's ident. You can go now. Be careful. Theobroma's army is everywhere. Yes, sir, mumbled Frolix. Thank you, sir. He tried the engine again. Finally it sparked into life. His hands were still shaking as he found a gap in the crowd and drove away from the protest march. No one spoke again until they were in the clear and speeding through the rain. Frolix groaned. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry I put us through that. You did good there, Bixer. Real good. I owe you. Me too, said Lucky, still shaking uncontrollably. They'd come so close to disaster. You were brilliant, Bixer. I was, wasn't I? She turned round and grinned. Like comets, her sudden grins came flashing out of nothing, seemed to light up the world, and then soared away again. Weren't you scared? He asked her. Yeah, she said quietly. We're all of us scared when it comes to them. I ain't scared of anything, Frolix mumbled, except for them. But you didn't seem scared at all, Lucky told Bixer. You were so brave. Brave? Bixer shook her head. Brave would have been standing up for what we believe in, like those marchers, or fighting them, like your mother did. Lucky was silent. The fire in his heart burned at the memory. Come on, Bixer, said Frolix. You can't fight them. You know you can't. Maybe I could, if I only had the guts. I worked my whole life to make sure I can defend myself, and I'm a good fighter, I know I am, but I'll never find out, will I? Lucky was puzzled. Why not, he asked her. What's stopping you? Is it because you're going to be a Star Talker? No, she snapped, needles darkening. Frolix glanced back at her and looked away without a word. Anyway, she muttered, don't get too excited about that whole Star Talker thing. That's Mystica's idea, not ours. Above their heads there was another crack of thunder. The rain thickened, the streets were getting wetter and wetter. Deep puddles were forming, glowing with reflections, like there was another world just below the surface of the water. We'd better take cover, said Frolix, till the storm passes. He pulled up by a cycle shelter on the side of the road. It was a corrugated iron shack, just big enough for the three of them to huddle beneath it. Raindrops pattered on its roof as they watched the storm play out before them. After a while, Frolix took a pipe out of his pocket and lit it. He drew deep on the pipe and smoke rose in spirals from its bowl. Okay, he said at last. I think there's something you should know about us, Lucky. It's only fair. Right, Bixer?" Bixer shrugged. "Her needle's almost black now. You tell him if you want to. I can't." "Tell me what?" said Lucky. Frolix took another deep drag on the pipe. The shelter was full of smoky scent now, as well as the storm smells of rain and wet leaves. "Well," he said, "it's about our family and who we really are." "Your brother and sister, right?" said Lucky. "Of course," said Frolix. "And Mystica and Nox. They're your parents." "They're our grandparents," Frolix exhaled with a sigh. "Their daughter, Joxie, our mum, well, there's a reason why you haven't met her, or our dad. See, back before the war, before any of us were born, Joxie went travelling through the world, and on her travels she fell in love with a human, a man called Jonathan." "Jonathan?" said Lucky. Outside the shelter, raindrops were rippling the surface of a puddle. Mystica mentioned that name. She said my contact lenses were his. "Yeah," said Frolix as Frolix looked away. "He needed to disguise himself because not everyone liked to see an Axa and a human together. People said it wasn't natural. Some people even thought they were but different species. But that's not true. And the proof is, Axa and humans can have kids together, just like our parents do." "Jonathan's your father?" said Lucky. "Your father's human?" "Amazing, isn't it?" said Frolix, his eyes glinting blue in the shadows of the shelter. "We look Axa like our mother, because the generic line always follows the mother's side. But the truth is, we're half Axa, half human." Lucky couldn't help grinning. "So you're groundlings," he said, "just like me." "Don't push it," said Bixer as the rain streamed down. "We're both, and we're neither. But what difference does it make? To humans we look just alien, so we're treated like aliens." "And even amongst Axa," said Frolix, "it's never been easy. When the war came, everyone had to choose sides. We couldn't. The Star Talkers refused to, because they could see all points of view. The Axa King and the human president both hated them for that. And our people were so fired up, they turned against the Star Talkers too. It got dangerous. We weren't welcome anywhere. Our family got trapped in the middle of a battle between Shadow Guards and the Axa army. Captain Nox saved us. He got us through the safety on the Sunflower. He got us through away to safety on the Sunfire, though we had to fly through exploding dark matter bombs to do it. But our parents, well, they didn't make it. They were caught in the crossfire and killed, shot by both sides." Lucky's grin was gone. He felt awful. "Oh no, I'm so sorry." "I was just a kid," said Frolix. He blew out a series of smoke rings. "Bixer was so little. I had to carry her onto the ship, but I remember thinking, right here, if the Star Talkers can't even defend their own families, then who cares about Star Talking, huh? What's the point?" He shook his head. "Mystica never could explain that one to me. Her and the captain, all they wanted to do was keep us safe from violence. So they took us away from the war zone and brought us to the quietest human worlds, looking for a peaceful life." "Never did find it," said Bixer in a small voice. "So that's why the captain won't let you fight," said Lucky. He leaned back and watched the smoke rise in spirals from Frolix's pipe. In the glow of its embers, it seemed to him that he saw his companions clearly for the first time. At last he understood that strange gap between Mystica and Nox, the old people, and Frolix and Bixer, the young. He felt the absence that no one ever spoke of, but he was always there, between them on the ship, and now he could see why his disguise had upset them so much. "I think you're both so brave, to come through all that." "We survived," said Bixer, "but only because we never ever tried to stand up to them. We never tried to change anything. We just keep our heads down and let them rule us. And that's not brave, that's cowardice." Lucky didn't agree. Now that he knew the story, he thought the way she just outwitted the Shadow Guard was even braver and more brilliant than he had before. But he kept his opinions to himself. There were no more words between them. They each were lost in their own thoughts and memories. Gradually the storm passed, the rain eased off, and the sun came out again. They left the shelter, and Frolix drove them through the glistening city streets until at last they arrived at the riverbank. He parked at a vast bridge that spanned the river. There was a series of caverns and the arches beneath it. Lucky could see people inside those caverns, and he heard the deep bass kick of music, an oceanic sound like heartbeats in a wind. "So this is it, kid," said Frolix, "the famous market of Leo 5, the place where you can get anything your heart desires." Trouble. Romans 7. The wolf poisons hearts. The Astraeus of love cannot heal them, for they are too full of hate. Into the chapter. What have we learned in that chapter? What have we found out? We've also been described Leo 5. There's enough in there to create an image, a drawing, an idea of it. Why does the author do that? Another thought, what does a space cycle look like? I wonder. Bye for now.